Welcome to the Sharkpreneur podcast with Kevin Harrington and Seth Greene. Kevin Harrington is the inventor of the infomercial, one of the original sharks from the hit TV show Shark Tank, and has generated over $5 billion in TV and digital direct response sales. Seth Greene is the world's first trusted authority on cutting-edge direct response marketing, a best-selling author, and the only 3-time Marketer of the Year nominee. On the podcast, Kevin and Seth interview sharkpreneurs who share straight talk on what it takes to explode your business.
Why do so many businesses struggle while others seem to explode overnight? Do you wish you had the secret to this type of exponential growth? Now, I've scaled more than 20 businesses to over $100 million, and it's not just luck. In my new book with Mark Tim, Mentor to Millions, you'll learn the repeatable framework I use in all my business ventures for massive success. Order at kevinmentor.com and get over $1,000 in bonuses. Head to kevinmentor.com.
Welcome to the Sharkpreneur podcast. This is your co-host, Seth Greene. Today I have the good fortune to be joined by Anish Dalal. He is the co-founder of Sapphire Apps Media, just selected for Forbes 30 Under 30. They are a marketing agency that creates content for brands to run on paid media. They've worked with Disney, Honey, Tally, Tencent, American Idol, FunPlus, Viacom, and for the last year, TikTok. They've generated over 1 billion views on social media, so they've seen what's worked and what doesn't. Anish, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Our pleasure. Let's go back in time a little bit. How'd you get started?
I think I've been doing the whole entrepreneur thing since I was about 16. The first business I started was selling used computers on eBay. And then, one thing led to another. But where I got started with my latest business was I was doing a consulting internship. And my job was to look into the app space. And then I got super interested into apps, noticed an opportunity there, hired my first overseas developer. And then, made my first app. I got into the top 50. And then from there, companies started reaching out to me in terms of, how do we market our app? And that's kind of how the current business started.
Awesome. And then how did you go from that, to where you are now?
Yeah, so I was making apps for the App Store. And then I actually met my business partner around 2016. And then at that time, I was just making apps for myself, figuring out which apps can do well in the App Store, and then just getting them made by my overseas team. And then companies started reaching out to me saying hey, we see your apps are doing really well. Could you help us market ours? And then that's kind of how, Sapphire started. We started helping app companies help acquire users in the App Store. And then that kind of led us to today where we don't only help app companies, we help, a whole series of companies acquire customers. And then, we kind of did that. And then we came to the point what we're doing exactly right now is we saw the reason we were so good at acquiring customers wasn't because, we were amazing at, Facebook ads or Instagram ads. It was because we were making great content. And so that's where we're at now. We make content for all these companies, and they take our content and they run paid media on it. And we make content that converts. And that's the current iteration of our business.
All right, so that is awesome. And if you're the longer version of that story should probably be in a book somewhere. So just as an example, what were some of the types of apps you were building when it was purely app focused?
Sure, so it was super strategic. So an example is one of the first apps I had made was called Clash of Clans Cheats. So basically what that was, Clash of Clans was super popular.
I played at one point.
Yep. So I was I was playing, I was hey, it'd be cool to figure out how to do this faster and, go through it faster. And then I realized in the App Store, no one was really doing SEO for the App Store. So it's called ASO, App Store Optimization. And so what I did with that first app was I hired the influencer on YouTube who was really good at making, defeating all the levels to make a bunch of videos for me and kind of make a guide on how to beat the game. So just like how a game, a guide would exist for, Call of Duty or something that you buy in a store. But I made it into an app. And the cool thing was, when you search Clash of Clans, the first thing that would come up was Clash of Clans. The second app that would come up was mine. So then I
Wow.
started doing that for all the apps, and then I made this whole game guide library, and then started funneling all the traffic into one central app. But that was basically the goal. I was looking at keyword search demand and looking where competition was weak, and then catering what I made to demand instead of being like, I want to make the next social network or something like that. So over the course of that, ended up building 500 apps, and the portfolio was grew to a substantial amount.
Wow. So that is absolutely incredible. I love that you worked backwards, found out what people wanted, figured out a way to give it to them for places that had a built-in audience that you could piggyback off of. Phenomenal business model, obviously incredibly successful at it. So how does that lead to, so you have apps that are crushing it in the App Store. How does that lead to, let's say, a Disney or a TikTok reaching out and saying, hey, please help us? Because that's a huge leap.
Yeah, absolutely. So what was happening was I was getting all these apps, and I was actually really good at just marketing the app. So I would take mediocre apps and I was getting them ranked in the top 10 and whatnot. These startups started emailing me. These were startups that had raised a few $1 million, and they're like, hey, like, we've spent all this money, but your mediocre app is in the top 10. How do we do that? So then these my first clients were startups, so they started hiring me to help do like ASO optimization, just optimizing the app store, where a lot of people had great apps, but they wouldn't do like the fundamental things around them at that time because nobody was really paying attention to it, to make them do well, because at that time you can get a lot of organic traffic. So it started with startups, and then the client list just started getting bigger and bigger. So I remember it was startups, then it got even more heavily funded startups. And then our first big name client, I think, was Foot Locker. We're like, it was a recognizable name. And then it Guess Jeans was another early client. And then, it kind of just went from one to another. And we started picking up Disney, Viacom, TikTok. TikTok also opened us up to a bunch of the Chinese brands entering the US. That's kind of it was just dominoes.
That is fascinating and fantastic. You've got over 1 billion views. So what are some of the most common mistakes content creators make when trying to make something that catches on? Talk a little bit about that. What are we doing wrong?
And the part that I focus on is the super short ads that you'll see on Instagram and Facebook. So my advice will be towards that. The things that sometimes that I see what's done wrong is people will try to make too much of a story happen. They'll try to think of, what's the story behind this piece of content, have a story flow to it. In these short form pieces of content, the first goal is to get the attention of the consumer. And, you're scrolling like crazy. You're seeing a lot of things in your feed. One, you definitely need to stick out. So the first 2 seconds are very important, which is a hook. And we're always innovating on different types of hooks. Right now we're utilizing TikTok trends as hooks and things and whatnot for our clients. So I would say first is stuffing the hook, and then it's actually to present the product so they know what it's about. But the key mistake I just see is people trying to make these, ads into stories, which is great, maybe in a YouTube format, but not on a Facebook or Instagram ad per se.
That makes a lot of sense. I'm with you there. What do you think it is about what you've done that's caused all of the content to catch on so much?
Okay, so the key thing we do is reiterating as fast as possible. So when a client approaches us, we don't make them 2 pieces of content or 3 pieces of content. We're literally making hundreds of pieces of content. Our content historically is not very, it doesn't look like high-end, photography content. It's more of the content that, it looks like it's shot from your iPhone. It's very UGC. Half the times our customers can't even tell our ads are ads because, it just blends so well into the Instagram story feed or into the Facebook feed. So I think what's helped our content catch on so fast is we consistently push out a volume of content based on the latest trends. And our teams are always trying to reiterate on different types of content, different types of concepts, different types of storyboards. And at the end of the day, I think to see what works in this business is just having a high volume of content and then really being data driven in terms of what is working. Because when we make content, we're strictly looking at the numbers for our clients to see, hey, can we reduce your cost per acquisition? Can we reduce your cost per install? And that's your key goal.
What does it look like for brands to work with you now? How does that work? What does your business model look like today, now that you're not necessarily creating, 2, 3, 4 apps a day?
Yeah, absolutely. So the cool thing with the whole app part of our business, and then as we became like user acquisition focused, performance has always been like the backbone of like the business, and we carry that into content. So historically, when we entered this business, what was happening was somebody would sell a piece of content to a client and be like, here's an ad, pay me $10,000 for it. And then, the client would pay, it'd be a very nice ad, they would run, it would perform or it wouldn't perform. So what we do now is we say, hey, we don't want to get paid unless our stuff works. So we give our client a bucket of content. So let's say we give them like 10 to 20 pieces of content, and we say, hey, run this content. We'll only take a fee on whatever money you spend on our content. So there's a fixed fee that we take on the money that they spend on our content. So a client won't spend money on a piece of content if it's not working. So the only things we're getting paid for is what's working. Granted, we do have minimums and things like that, but our whole goal is it's performance through content. We only take fees on things that are working. So that's how we're trying to like turn the whole business around, or the whole industry around, in terms of selling content for performance.
That is, an absolutely incredible model, and obviously puts your money where your mouth is, because you're not really getting paid unless what you're worth unless it works. Mm-hmm. What do you like best about what you're doing now?
My favorite thing about what we're doing now is just the ability to actually be like, our business is super data driven, but the ability just to be creative, right? When we come up with ads, it's so much fun. When we're doing brainstorms as a team, it's so much fun just coming up with the randomest ideas. A random idea even might be like the phone, the camera is facing the sidewalk and it's shaking. The customer, the user's like, what is happening? And then you swing it back to focus on whatever the piece of content is. So we're always doing testing. We're always coming up with the craziest ideas. And the cool thing is we can test all of it because, our clients are looking for performance, and we can test all the craziest ideas. And I think that's like the funnest part about the business, is just the ability to be like creative, come up with ads. Even if I'm like walking down the street or I pick up a phone, I'm just like, how can this be an ad? And that's like the thing that's always going through my head. And it's like so much fun just to come up with cool, like new creative ad ideas. And then we have products internally that we can just test on, that are owned. So, there's no client restrictions or limitations. And then if it works, we'll, show them to our clients, be like, hey, these concepts are working if you would like them in your next bag.
What was the most, you've created so much content. What was the most surprising to you, where you thought there's no way this is going to work, and it worked beyond your wildest expectation?
Yeah, it was actually at the very start of when we went all in on content. I think, so we were working for, it was a SaaS company that needed content. The other agency that they were working with was a very well known global agency. I think they had paid like $500,000 for the 30-second ad. We had made a 15-second ad, which they paid marginal amounts for because it was based on performance. Our 15-second ad, it was a few $1,000. It completely blew out the $500,000 ad, and that was the coolest thing I've ever seen. It's just in the beginning when our team had made these quick pieces of content, but they looked very authentic to the customer, that we were out competing $500,000 ads and $700,000 ads. So that was pretty cool.
That is awesome. Who's an ideal client for you now?
An ideal client for us is any company that's spending over $100,000 a month on any of the major social platforms, that goes through a lot of content and doesn't want to manage that. Because our whole goal is like, hey, you focus on selling your product, we'll focus on giving you a large amount of content that eventually will reduce your CPA.
Awesome. What else do you want to share that I didn't think to ask you?
I think a lot of times, like, people will ask like, oh, how'd you guys arrive to this conclusion of you just wanted to be focused on content? I think is a very interesting one. It was like, as we were doing the performance marketing, and as time goes forward, we saw that, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, the AIs are getting so smart and so strong that, you no longer have to like open the hood inside of Facebook ads and like tweak everything. The real only variable that is left in terms of ads is the content. You want to let Facebook or Instagram do its thing, and then you plug in content to make it work. So that's actually like how we arrived to that conclusion, because we were first doing the performance marketing and whatnot. So yeah, so that's one question I get asked a lot in terms of how we got to that conclusion.
For our folks
Yeah.
who are watching and listening and want to learn more about Sapphire and what you guys do, where is the best place for us to send them?
You guys could definitely check out our website. It's called www.sapphireapps.com and also www.sapphirestudios.com. You know, if anyone ever wants to get a hold of me, you can just find me on LinkedIn or Instagram. It's fine too. At It's Anish D on Instagram, and then just my name on Anish Dalal on LinkedIn. So
awesome. Well, this has been Seth Greene for Sharkpreneur with Anish Dalal of Sapphire Studios and Sapphire Apps. Anish, fascinating interview. You built something incredible. Thank you so much for sharing it with us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thanks everybody for watching or listening. We'll see you next time.
Do you need money to fund your idea, product, or service? Are you ready to take your business to the next level, but need capital to get it done? Kevin Harrington has heard more than 50,000 pitches and knows how to help you make the perfect pitch to get the funding for your entrepreneurial dream. He's distilled the process down in his perfect pitch cheat sheet, and it's yours for free. Just text PITCH to him right now at 727-888-2100. Text PITCH to 727-888-2100 right now and claim your free perfect pitch cheat sheet. Text PITCH to 727-888-2100 to start funding your dream today.
This show has been produced by Market Domination, LLC. To discover how you can have your own show completely done for you and turn it into a real published book and become the authority in your marketplace, go to www.marketdominationllc.com/podcast offer.